Hey, everybody. Welcome to another great episode of Unpack Your Life. And we have Kerim Kfuri here with us today. And Kerim is on our show with us to explain to us all about what the supply industry chain is about. 'Cause I have no idea and I'm new to it, so I'm excited to hear about it. We understand that unpacking is all about letting go toxic ties and emotions, and we're going to see how we can connect the dots with this. Okay, Kerim? Just introduce yourself to the audience, tell them a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Thank you, Jane, for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And what a great topic and what a great subject for the show. Yes, my name is Kerim Kfuri. I'm the president and CEO of the Atlas Network. It's a global supply chain solutions company. We have over 2,000 suppliers in our network. And our focus has really always been to help entrepreneurs, small, medium, and large size businesses build dependable supply chains. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means, and take advantage of really the global economy in a way that is safe and full of opportunities and capabilities, but also has, a bunch of ups and downs, pitfalls, variabilities, and risks that, some businesses are just fully unaware of. And they end up underestimating what's really required in order to facilitate a proper supply chain. So we help those companies with that. Outside of that, I've written a book around supply chain called Supply Chain Ups and Downs. I do a lot of thought leadership on LinkedIn and conferences and speaking about best practices, because this is a very important industry that has a lot of misinformation around it, and it impacts consumers and business people every single day. And we've been hearing the word supply chain consistently in the news
Absolutely.
every day, tariffs and all these other kinds of things. And,
and more and more.
And more and more. And it's been that way pretty much since the pandemic, where, people just couldn't get their hands on things they needed, and everybody didn't know why. And the answer was supply chain. Well, there's a lot of reasons and underlying factors as to what that is. So that's my world. I'm a supply chain professional and an expert in this space, and happy to be here with you today. So,
yes, I when I read about you, international global thought leader, definitely making an impact in the supply chain industry, and I think that's amazing. Tell me a little bit about real estate in reference to that. And you did touch on something, just a second ago during the pandemic, and also, at one point, we could not purchase cars because the cars were so expensive, because we did not have access to, I believe it was some type of intel that we needed for the cars.
Chips and different kinds of things, right? The chips that go inside the cars for the mechanism, for the electronics. I can talk to you a little bit about this. The long story short of it is we operate in a global economy. And the world has never been smaller than it is today due to technology, communication platforms, and honestly, globalization, right? Globalization has really taken us to the far reaches and corners of the world, where so much of the things that we buy and use come from just different parts of the planet. And in the beginnings, this was really labor, workforce and so on. But through time, it's turned into skill sets. It's turned into
100%.
It's turned into materials, particular materials that are only really available in certain places or accessible in certain places. And so, when we're talking about supply chain and we're talking about industries, like, for example, the real estate industry, as you mentioned, or the automotive industry,
right?
We have to think about, what goes into like building a house, right? You need to have lumber, you need to have glass, for windows.
Screws, nuts, bolts, all of it.
Nuts, bolts, hardware, roofing, all of these different components. Well, not all those components come from just down the street. As a matter of fact, they come from different parts of the planet. And so the reality of it is that if there are disruptions in the supply chain to get it from that part of the planet, either manufacturing supply chain restrictions or transportation issues or tariffs between countries that make things really expensive now versus less expensive because of economic sanctions, all of these things flow through into the final end product, which in this case is to build that house. So
Right.
if those screws and nuts and bolts that are coming from China are now being impacted with a 25% or a 10% tariff, or if we have something like a pandemic that happens where goods can't get on the water because there's just such a bottleneck of transportation, well, that then impacts the ability to build, which impacts the ability to sell, which impacts the cost of these homes because of a lack of
Absolutely.
availability, a lack of building materials, and so forth. So you can see how very quickly the supply chain, specifically in we're just talking materials side of it
Yes.
here, can directly have an impact to an industry. And you mentioned before automotive. Yes, I mean, we were having issues in the past where, chips were a real complicated situation. So many of our
Absolutely.
cars today basically drive themselves and have their own, brains. And, we're far from the days of you just turning a key and everything works. You got to push a button,
Right.
you got to do 5 things, and it has to
The
kind of
television, for instance.
exactly. It's got to sync up. And so, you can see how a disruption regarding sort of the brain of the car, which would be these microchips and so forth,
Absolutely.
would therefore disrupt manufacturing, which would therefore disrupt the ability to get availability of finished products, sell these products. And what happens is that you then create, which happened during the pandemic, a surge in the secondary market because new cars weren't available.
Right.
So the cost of used cars were going through the roof
It
because
surged up.
people
That's
still
right.
needed cars. It's supply and demand, right? You got a big demand for cars. You have a limited supply of new vehicles. So you have a new, how do you solve that? Secondary market, right? Which is going to
Right.
be the used car market. So, when it
And
comes to
most
the supply,
people, Kareem, at that point, and what most people did, I remember I did particularly, I had to kind of strategize because I wanted a brand new
yes,
car and I couldn't up my car. I had a leased car, of course, and I couldn't up my lease because everything was all discombobulated because of the supply chain getting the product to us. I had to think about it. And I said, it'd be best after I went to talk to them, the MSRP skyrocketed. And they told me my payment would have been exorbitant. Buy out the lease, buy the car outright, own it, because what they're going to do is take it and put it on the secondary market and make double what I paid for it, which is not good. So you had to kind of navigate those waters when we were there. And also with the homes, because now we have an explosion of developers in Florida and New York, every inch of the country, they're developing. And because now the supply, we have an abundance of supplies.
correct. You have an abundance of supply now, but that again is now.
Now, right,
And where this is where supply chain management comes into play, and really what my company does and helps businesses and entrepreneurs navigate is it looks this way today, but there is a whole host of disruptions that are continuously happening, things that you can control and the things that you can't control. So the things that you can control are possibly with additional oversight and management is the quality of the product, the
right,
timelines of the product, the way that the materials are being sourced and manufactured and so forth. As long as you have proper management around those processes, which a lot of companies don't have,
mm-hmm.
so they'll hire a group like ours to help them do that on the ground, give them visibility, give them transparency. Those are the things that you can try to control. And even those things are left to sometimes be uncontrolled. And then
Right,
the things you can't always control. So what are we talking about there? We're talking about force majeure, issues of nature, war, political changes, currency and economic issues, a pandemic. These things are the things that are the unforeseeable. So when you look at this industry of getting these things from A to B,
or
there's
Z.
it's a see it's a bumpy ride. And that's why, again, in my thought leadership and in my book that I wrote, which is called Supply Chain Ups and Downs, it's called Ups and Downs because it's a bumpy ride. It's this up and down
Yes.
mechanism of
You
being
know, I
able to
love
balance.
I love where you talk about embracing the imbalances, and you're talking about embracing the imbalances and, stop seeking the equilibrium. I thought that was fantastic. Well said. And you said the key to driving efficiency is innovation. And by
Correct.
them embracing the imbalances and not just trying to figure out how to make it balance, it makes sense. And I thought that was an amazing quote from you.
Yeah. And
if you quoted that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. And basically what that plays into is it plays into the economic theory that I discuss in the book, which is called supply chain socioeconomics.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm talking about is I'm talking about the fact that the greatest outcome comes through the imbalance. It's because of the fact that there's a lack of alignment between suppliers and customers that actually drives economic momentum, where you're going to either have one of three things are going to happen. You're either going to have compromise, where it's going to be one-sided by one side or the other. You're going to have concessions, where it's like not a happy compromise, and it could be because of leverage, like a factory has more leverage than a customer has, or a customer has more leverage than a factory has. Or finally, you could have abandonment of a relationship where everybody sort of gets off the merry-go-round and they have to develop a new supply chain. And this is where we start talking about things like nearshoring and ally shoring, these other opportunities where existing supply chains may have to be redeveloped or recreated because they don't make sense anymore.
Right.
So again,
there's no place to utilize them.
Correct. So you create basically an equilibrium through a lack of equilibrium.
Got it. I understand that completely. When I read it, I get this. There's no way you can just try to embrace equilibrium without embracing the imbalances to correct that. And that's the only way you get to that. And I think that's fascinating. What made you unpack your life and step away from your career at Warner Brothers? I found that interesting also. Tell us a little bit about that. In the marketing, your marketing is what drives our whole, system here. If you market correctly, we're going to come. So that goes along with the supply and chain also. So you're marketing your company, consultancy, aligning everyone with the right people, protection, vetting the customers that are dealing with each other as far as the supply chain is concerned. I mean, that's a lot to grasp for a company. I think are you an anomaly in this industry?
I think I am, in the fact that I don't have a very direct path, which is what I think most successful entrepreneurs also don't have, a very straight path. You've done different things, and before I came to this industry, I did a lot of different things for a lot of different industries and companies. As you said, I worked in the music industry for a while. I was in the financial industry for a while. Where I worked in the financial industry. I was on the regulatory side, was Securities and Exchange Commission, and NASD, FINRA, the regulatory side. And I was in technology, in the .com space, as many people were. All of these different things were arrows in my quiver, so that in the end, when I ended up creating my own company and left the corporate world eventually, every single one of those experiences I use every single day.
100%. You know what, Kerim? A lot of people with entrepreneurs, depending on how successful you are in certain people's eyes, success looks different to everybody, and I think when we're perpetual students and we go to the route of entrepreneurship, all the things that we have learned, no matter which industry we were in at that point in time, I believe is always going to be a culmination of all of those things that make us that person, that success, because you can't get anywhere without the wisdom, the experience, and the time put in. And you must show up. Personal growth is just that, personal growth. And to me, you're like me. I love learning. I love meeting people. I love being out there in the grit of what's happening in the world, because if not, I feel like I'm being left behind. I'm missing. So I don't want to miss anything. So I hear a lot of people when they talk about entrepreneurs, especially if you were a jack of all trades in their mind, because most people, they'll throw that out at you in a minute. But you think about it and you say, I might have been a jack of all trades, but those trades served me well. And that's why I'm here, because it was a culmination of all of those things. That was your target. Like you said, all those arrows were pointing to where you are now.
Correct. And I think that in the end too, the most important thing is that if you do have various skill sets or you operate in different industries,
Yes.
and as you said, kind of aiming towards a singular target, what brings it all home is really you. You bring it home. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that the definition of how you choose to conduct yourself with people, with businesses, with clients, with suppliers, or whatever your business sort of entails, is really going to be the secret sauce. Because no matter what we talk about, in the end, business is a people business.
That's right.
It is about face to face, it is about communication. People are going to write you that check or put their trust in you and your confidence because, yeah, you've got the experience and you've got, whatever you've done historically and a good track record and so on. But in the end, they got to trust somebody. They got to say, listen, I trust this person. I trust Jane. I trust Kerim. I trust them because not only do people speak, well about them, but outside of that, they get me. They understand what we're trying to do here. And they're going to basically treat this in the way that I would want to treat it myself.
Absolutely.
So that, regardless of industry, regardless of skill set, that basic fundamental understanding, I think, is what really just brings it all, crystallizes it, and brings it home.
I agree with you 100% because personal growth is an individual thing. It's not, a lot of people think it's, this kind of fleeting word or words that we just throw out there, personal growth. Well, no, it's basically what you said. It's your secret sauce. It's been the secret sauce to so many luminaries in our lives that have shared their experience and their knowledge. And knowledge is, information is leverage. People say knowledge is this and knowledge. No, it's leverage, period. You have the information, you can leverage it. You understand it, and you bring along that skill set to hopefully have someone value that and write you that check. And that's what it's about.
Sure.
And if you don't show up in your authentic self, people can see through that. That's so important to be authentic in your realm of growing, especially with the people that you will meet, because you can suss it out immediately by the way they speak, by the way they handle themselves, by the way they've done business. Everything that you said, all those boxes has to be checked. And you would want them to vet you just as much as you have vetted them, because that's it. We can't walk around apologizing for who we are. We have to unpack boldly and unapologetically to get the job done most of the time. And people have to believe in who you are and what you do when you walk through that room. And hopefully you have the confidence and the skill set to win them over. And to me, that's
Absolutely.
what unpacking your life is about, as far as I'm concerned, because it releases or relinquishes the power that's in the belly of the fire, which is that ambition. And if you can't release that when you're out there being an entrepreneur or someone that's, looking for personal growth, then it's done before you even get started. It's so done.
I know. I was going to say I would agree 100% with exactly what you're saying. And what's interesting about that is that entrepreneurs understand that.
Yes.
So they understand that every day you're going to go home with those successes and failures. Every day you're going to wake up and you're going to have to be your own cheerleader. You're going to have to put on that fireman's coat and you're going to have to put out those problems that you're dealing with. I put on my cape. Whatever it is, you put on your bulletproof vest, your cape, your fireman's coat, whatever it is. And that's something that I believe is a common bond that just so many entrepreneurs understand.
Absolutely.
I have a deep appreciation and value for the corporate world and the corporate experience. I think that everybody should work for some pretty large companies in their life to learn skills and team building and how to operate at a much higher level. But in the end, when you're going to be the entrepreneur, you really have a whole entire new skill set that is not taught, is not in a book.
That's right.
It's basically, what are you going to do when you're in the corner? Your back's against the wall, and the only way out is to fight your way out to figure it out.
You have to figure it out. And everything is figure outable. I love her. Everything is figure outable, and it's true.
Well, it's that idea. It's that age old adage. Where there's a will, there's a way, right? If you have
Absolutely.
the will, you figure out the way. And no, I do agree with what you're saying here.
Can you share with me a pivotal moment in your life that made you realize the importance of unpacking your life and living authentically?
Well, I think it's all about just really being true to who you are and what is important to you. And I think one of the biggest moments for me, at least in the corporate world for me, that balanced out not just with corporate but also personal was, when I left the corporate world, for sure. I was at a large organization. I had been promoted a few times over and was like in an executive pathway. And I looked around and I saw, the people that were supposed to be those I was to look up to, the CEO and the
Yes.
CFOs and so on. And I said, I don't want to be those people. I don't
Right.
want to do those things. And, it's really difficult to at that moment say, I'm going to leave something that's very secure, especially when you start having,
That's right.
children and a family and there's risks involved and all these other things to say, I'm going to take a bet and the bet's going to be on me. And I'm going to just
100%.
and I'm going to go for that.
Hmm.
But the reality of it was and is for me is I've always been an entrepreneur, and I wasn't. I'm not going to say I was fooling myself by being in the corporate world because again, I think it has its time and its place and was very valuable. But there was a time where I was starting to regress as far as what would be my potential in
Absolutely.
my at least my business life and my capabilities. And I'm just very happy that I decided to just kind of leave it, even at a time where I was at a height. And I said, I'm just leaving to just go for this.
Right.
And because there was a lot of risk involved, but at the same time, too, couldn't be happier. And luckily, it's worked out.
Oh,
I
God,
don't, I,
right? I
I
know.
wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say luck had to do with it. I think it's just again that ability to just when times are tough, figure out how to find a way and always be positive and optimistic and confident in what you're doing. You have to be.
I felt that way also. I mean, I've never worked for anyone. I've only had one job in my life, one job that was stable, and I was a flight attendant at that time, right out of college from getting a finance degree. Go figure. But my dad told
Well,
me, do it. You're going to enjoy it. It's a once in a lifetime thing. If you love it, stay. If you don't, you have your degree to fall back on. And he was right. 4 years into the career, I left because I left. And it was an amazing, amazing job because it allowed me to travel the world and see the
I
world
was going to
through,
say,
through my eyes very inexpensively. And I was very, very lucky. And from that day on, I realized I have a, part-time job with full-time benefits. What can I do with this? That was the whole
right.
key. I graduated finance. I mean, I'm thinking about how am I going to navigate through this life with this paycheck? It's not going to work. So what do? I found out later on in life that I enjoy uncertainty. And that's what makes me a great entrepreneur. I'm willing to take the chance. I'm willing to jump in. I'm willing to listen to other people when they have things that they want me to check out or advise them on. Love being a mentor, love my business, have never thought about leaving, never gave a second thought to leaving a company that I was with in my
Hmm.
industry.
Hmm.
And I've been with the big
Hmm.
dogs, Sotheby's, Coldwell Banker, opened up Compass in Naples, Florida, pretty much. I was the only agent they had there. I was put them on the map. Um, but never thought about it twice, just went for it, and everything seemed to fall in place because I was always showing up. And that's, to me, was the key to show up, to know my business, to be confident in who I am, and what I deliver, and to make it happen. And I went from selling $90,000 condos to selling $20 million condos. So I was happy, and there's no
Yeah,
ceiling. You just keep
that's
moving.
that's the important part, and I think that comes down to that conversation around your mindset, right? So when it comes to being an entrepreneur, I really think that we talk a lot about mindset and growth mindset and these other ideas, but I really believe that it comes down to having a limitless mindset. that
Oh,
you essentially
100%.
you essentially determine that the only limitation that's going to be put is the one that you put on yourself, and
And the
that and
why.
then and the why, sure. And so if that's the case, then be your own cheerleader, for God's sakes.
It's
Don't
right.
be don't be your own naysayer. Don't be the one who's
Oh,
trying to put yourself down all the time. So it's about self motivation and self confidence, of course. And you said, I think your order, the way you said it, it's about showing up and this, that, and then you said self confidence. I would say, at least for myself, that it's the other way around. That it's
confidence
self
first.
confidence
Yes.
first.
I got that
Yeah,
one covered.
and then from that, we then make sure that we show up and we make sure that
Right.
the other things. But because if you don't have that at the top, you won't show up. You won't even
No.
show up.
And I
So
think the
it's
confidence part comes from knowing your business, knowing what you're
and
talking about,
yourself
and experiencing
and
it,
yourself.
and yourself first.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
I agree
yeah.
with
Of
you.
course.
Definitely.
Yeah,
But, a lot
because
of people don't.
a lot of people don't, or they talk themselves out of it. That's what I think is the real issue. I don't think
Hmm.
the issue is that people don't. I think that we all have a pretty good sense of who we are, but we'll look around and talk ourselves out of taking those chances because we're in an age of convenience. Whether it's I want to just push a button and this happens instead of do the hard work, or I want to just have it kind of come to me. I mean, how many of the graduating students these days all want to just graduate and be like millionaires and don't want to put in any work to
Every
get
last
there?
one of them. Every last one of
Right.
them.
Every last one of them,
Every
right?
last one
And
of them.
and the reality of it is God bless them if they can, create a cool app or the next greatest, AI technology. But that's going to be 1% of a 1% of a 1%. Everybody else is going to have to put in the work. They're going to have to prove
Hmm.
themselves. They're going to have that crappy job where they're still making coffee or Xerox
Oh,
copies for
God.
somebody. Look at me dating myself. Xerox copies.
I know. It's like
We don't even have
me. Where's your
we don't even have
Rolodex?
right. Where's your Rolodex? Right. But I mean, the point being is you got to pay your dues and whatever that looks like in 2024 in
Right.
order to essentially grow and develop and that's just a matter of being willing to take the chances on yourself and believing in yourself.
And
A
that
lot of
goes back
people,
a long ways too, Kareem, because well, I think you were going to say something. A lot of people have a lot of baggage also when it comes to self-confidence, and they have a lot of doubt, you know, and toxic ties, that relationships that they have that stops them from moving forward. And imagine if they let all that go and embraced
right?
who they are to find out the truth of being confident, and getting rid of those two people that are on your shoulders, the right and left guy that are telling you no, you can't do it, and the other one is saying, well, you can. What's stopping you? But then you have the
You know,
baggage
it,
and the
it's funny you
tradition.
say that. Yeah, it's funny you say that though, because see, like I have a little bit of a different perspective on that. I would say that it's not about letting go of the baggage. It's about actually recognizing the baggage and using it as a motivator
Exactly, to
to
propel you. Yes.
right. So when you think about that toxic relationship, you then say, how far away am I going to get from that? So if you let it go, then it loses its meaning, it loses its incentive power, its motivating factor. So I almost feel like it's like you take those scars and you wear them proudly, you take that
Right.
baggage and you put it up on a pedestal so you see it. So you basically know how far you've come from there. So I'm more of a fan of like not letting go of those things, but actually
Or
embracing those things, to
rewriting
then
those chapters that don't serve you
correct.
anymore. Because
Yep.
if they don't serve you anymore and you write the new chapters, and understand what your why is in life, because why changes. For me to become super motivated, I had to embrace the big why. And a lot of people think that is a cliche, but that why is so important. It's not superficial either. And it's not easy to figure out what that why is. And a lot of people, oh, I want
Sure.
to buy a house, or, I need to take care of my kids. Well, all of that is said and done. We know that. What is the true meaning of you wanting to be successful and why,
Sure. Sure.
and a lot of
Yeah.
people don't get to that. So this leads me to another segue. How do you balance your professional success with your personal fulfillment? And what role does that play in unpacking your life and maintaining the balance?
I think you have to draw some very clear lines for yourself about the reason why you do what you do. And that, for most of us, is for personal reasons and what that means to you. So, in my case, I love to spend time with my family. I love to spend time with my children and enjoy that more than anything else. I do that for them. I don't do this just for vanity or for basically, building up resources that none of us are going to take with us to the grave anyway.
Oh, this is
So you're
true. Right,
basically just you're building for a comfortable life while you're on this planet and enjoying it and living in a way that's comfortable and fulfilling. And then outside of that, making sure that you make time for yourself, whatever that is for you. So I like to play sports. I like to play music. I like to, run around and just enjoy my time where I can.
right.
So if I can't do those things that make me happy, at least in some level of frequency that's acceptable to me, then in the end, I'm not really I have my balances out of whack. And regardless of what you may say, hey, I'm just not going to do this or spend time with my family for a year or two or three, or I'm going to, whatever,
No,
because of the fact that I'm just driven by finances or whatever it may be, then you're really just not living your life. And where can
right.
I give you I'll give you a perfect example of this. So I took a trip to India not too long ago. And, India has one of the highest levels of poverty in the world.
Yes,
Okay. But you know what I saw when I was in India that was just fascinating to me was they were so rich in smiles
that's
and
right.
rich in fulfillment and in
That's
and
right.
in community. We would see these areas which were slums, and there were very poor people, and they're just laughing and they're joking and enjoying their time and this, that, and the other without many of the concerns that they have concerns, of course, different kinds of concerns, but
Right.
they were living in a way that was about dependence on each other and community and relationships and living with each other in their circumstances that they were in. And so it leads me back to this idea of you've got to do it for why it matters. And why it matters is connectivity and family and connections and friends and these other things, because there's a place where just enough is enough. And
Yes.
then beyond that is just excessive for no reason. And it then takes away from the other things that are important. But we make excuses as to why we're working harder or why we're doing these things. No one will ever look back and say, I wish I would have worked harder. No one will
No.
ever look back and say, I wish I would have made that extra $1,000. Whatever. They will look back and say, I wish I spent more time with my kids. I wish I
Steve
spent more time
Jobs,
with
perfect
my
example.
my spouse, my friends, whatever else it is. And so this is for me the equilibrium. And I hope it is for most other entrepreneurs. I know there are many entrepreneurs that it isn't. I've met entrepreneurs who are like, I don't spend a dollar, I don't see my family and my kids, but I live in this huge, huge house and my life is empty. But for me, it's very fulfilling because all I care about is the work. I will
That's
never live
never the
that kind of
truth.
way. I will never be that kind of way.
Right.
And but there are those that are that way, and they're successful in one way, but mass failures
Massive
in many other
failures.
areas. So
Massive. I 100% agree with you on that. And it's true because you have to take time for the people you care about. You
yep.
know, I just kind of unpacked my life because I did not do that. And I just spent, which is amazing, with my mother, and I haven't been with her, I would say in 14, 15 years on her birthday.
Mm.
Could have come, but too busy selling and trying to climb to the top of, the industry I was in, or I am in Florida. And I missed that. And Sunday, I was with my mother on her 86th birthday, and I was like, oh my God, I would have died if I had missed what I saw that day. It was the grandkid. It was
Sure.
all my
Yep.
siblings' kids, and my siblings' kids. And my mother had no idea she was walking through the door for a surprise party. 86 years old. You see her face on
Great.
every last one of us. And it was just so amazing. And I called her the next day when I was traveling back to the city. I said, I've done a lot of things in my life. I said, I don't want to have any regrets. And after yesterday, I have not missed anything. And I said, if anything happens to me, you make sure you stand up and say, my daughter lived. I said, because I have lived. After yesterday, I've lived. I've spent lots of time with my family, getting closer with my siblings. Because when I was younger, I was traveling a lot because I had that job.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time traveling a lot, just meeting people, being adventurous. You move away from your family. You don't think about them, but so much you think about them, but you're too busy trying to have fun and meet the world, especially if you're
Sure.
global. And
Yeah.
I just pulled it all back in. And I just started realizing what was more important to me than anything in the world. And as far as, I haven't worked in quite some time, which I'm fine with because when I do work, it's a nice paycheck when it comes through. But I haven't had any issues. And I just said to myself, wow, God is great because he knew I needed this part of my life to come back together. And I had to unpack what was holding me back, what was keeping me down, what was basically killing me inside. And I had to really understand that's the dark hole I went down. I had to climb out
Sure.
of it and understand that I needed my family and my friends. This is not going to work unless I
Sure.
have that part of my happiness. And now that I have that part of everyone says to me, my God, you look so different. You don't look the same. Your smile is huge. You look like you're really happy. And I am really happy. And it's unfortunate, I had to unpack certain relationships and things in my life to do that. But it made me really realize at this stage that all of that means nothing. Because like you said, you can't take it with you. And I've had a amazing life and lifestyle. And now I'm happy without all of that flash and, all of that. It's like, I see it now and I go, wow, I cannot believe I was caught up in that, knowing who I am inside.
You don't know how far you've gone until you actually are there and then turn around and look back.
Oh.
Right. It's that whole hindsight is 2020. Right. So with that in mind, it's not a regret. It's just a part of your experience then. And I bet if you think about it, you wouldn't change that for the world because, we kind of have, we have those experiences that are great and those experiences that aren't great, but they all chalk you up to the person that you are today. And the person you are today is not going to be the person you're going to be in 2 years or 1 year or 5 years from now. You're going to be a different person then too. So we're in evolution here, right? It's an evolution.
Forever evolving. Yes.
That is always going to be happening. And so we just have to embrace the moments that we're in and go from there and be able to not have regrets in those moments that we're in.
Absolutely. And I have none, trust me. And the moments I did have regrets at that time, and I felt like I was going down this dark hole, I was all knowing at the end of this journey of that I was going to come out and win because I had the strength. I knew I had to find it. I knew what I had to do. I understood what I had to do to build that strength mentally, physically, to make a move. And that's what I did. And once I did that, I went, okay, that wasn't that bad. Let's go. So now you know what to do. You want to involve other people and share with them because not everyone can unpack their lives the way I did and just like completely walk away from it. And that's a hard thing to do, male or female. People say it's very hard for women, but I could only imagine how hard it would be for a man if he was in that situation and had kids. I'm fortunate enough I didn't have kids, so it was a little easier for me because if I had kids, I probably would have, I don't know what I would have done. But that I was going to ask, my next question to you was, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned? I think I've just told you mine. I've learned that, family, friends, and understanding the journey with those people that really love and care about you is the most important thing in the world. Not money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not baubles.
I mean, Important. Yeah, no, it's not. And I mean, important lessons is don't be afraid to take a chance on yourself for sure,
Hmm.
because no one else will ever take as much of a chance on you as you will.
That's right.
That's one thing that I think people, you know, I always think about that. And I say to myself, for entrepreneurs, one of the first things that entrepreneurs start thinking about when they want to start a company is, I'm going to try to get some investors to invest in me and my idea and this, that, and the other. When
Yes,
the real question should be like, if you yourself are not willing to invest in your own idea or your concept, whether it's
right.
monetarily or with the
Exactly.
time and the effort, then what are you
What makes
even
you
doing?
think that somebody else is going to invest in you? Yeah.
Exactly. You have to be your own, like I said before, your own cheerleader. You got to be your own
Your
investor.
own beacon.
You got to invest in yourself. And if you do that, you'll never really lose. And that's what I've been doing most recently, the last kind of 2 years here. So for the first 2 decades of me doing this work, I sort of like lived in the shadows. I had no interest whatsoever to be out front. As long as we were doing good work for clients, I didn't care. It was just about that. But, when the pandemic came about and there was so much misinformation around this industry and what it is, and not a lot and not good education around it or a
Right.
relatable voice for this space. People hear supply chain now, they're still like very confused by it. I don't know what it means, how it goes, but it touches all of us in so many ways. I said, you know what? Now's the time. Now's the time that I invest in me being that voice and educating and imparting whatever I can to society at large, the things that I've learned and have done that have made me successful and will make others more successful and will spur economic growth and development
Right.
and opportunity. Because no one wins when you have products that are faulty. No one wins when you can't have products that deliver. No one wins when you can't do the things you need to do in the global economy. And these things are happening every single day. And a lot of times they're happening because best practices aren't being followed and people basically are underestimating the process. So if I can help with those things on a business level, an entrepreneurship level, and on a bigger level as well, then that message can reverberate. And through that can generate maybe some more jobs or some more business, some more negotiations and opportunities.
Mhm.
So that's really what my focus has been, outside of running my company that I still, run and do, is to basically invest in myself and bet on myself and me having a voice. And if you see my LinkedIn or my YouTube or all my like social media channels and things like that, you'll see I have basically videos every single day about different little topics around this industry and trying to really make it simple so that people can understand it. And that's students and consumers and business people and supply chain professionals. I'm really trying to make this very relatable. So that's
Right.
what the lesson is for me these days, which is betting on myself, betting on my knowledge and experience, and trying to, present it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that because in my past life, I was an entertainment manager and I managed certain people, names you would know. And I had thought about that when I left that industry. I said, what if I managed me like I managed them?
There you go.
I made them
Right.
successful. I can do that for me. So let's
Correct.
turn this around, Jane. Instead of running after the resources for these guys, why don't you run after the resources for yourself? Manage
Exactly.
yourself and put yourself in a position to be successful. You never worked for anyone. You always had to make the phone ring. I remember being in my first office, picking up the phone, thinking, is it working? It's not ringing. Is anybody going to call? I mean, and you figure it out. Like you said, I couldn't become an agent, so I became a personal manager. I wanted to be an agent, but when I went to look into it, I had to have a 10-year franchise license, and I didn't have that. So I said, let's look into being a personal manager. I think I would be better at it. And that's what I did. And lo and behold, I was really good at it and loved it. Then the market crashed in 2008. No one had any money. We weren't doing any advertising. We weren't doing any touring. It was all done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I went and got married. I ran to a safe place. So that was an interesting journey, but I really, really loved, it. And not only that, I found out that managing people is a very difficult industry because they're going to do what they want. And I used to always
Absolutely.
say to some of the ones that were really successful, I would say, if God gave me this talent, trust me, no one would have to tell me to get up to take care of my
Right.
business. I said, you're a very lucky
Right.
person. And I have to call you. I have to find you on tour because you're not on the bus when we're in Germany somewhere. I
Yep.
said, you're in a good place because you have me. And
Right.
every talent that left, they might have gone to LA or somewhere else and got a new manager. They called me and they would say, I never knew what a good manager was until I left you. When I left you, I
Hmm.
realized that you were the manager that I needed. You cared.
Hmm.
And that was the truth. I really cared about them. I knew everything about them. And when you're a personal manager in the entertainment industry, you're everything to that person.
Yep.
Not the
Yep.
agent, you are. So you have to take
Yep.
care of anything and everything that they need help with because they're the talent. That's what they do, and I've seen them hysterical and hit the stage and it's like it never happened. So they're different people, and
Yes.
God bless them, they're still doing well and I'm happy for them. But they're different people when they hit the stage as opposed to standing in front of you. Something happens and it
Oh, yeah.
happens. Oh yeah, it's
It's game
amazing.
time. It's
Oh my
game time.
God. Yeah. How important is it how important is it to you having a strong support system, personally and professionally, you know, um, in unpacking
It's
your life and reaching your goals?
it's everything. It's everything. You have to have that. But again, kind of keeping with the common theme here, the
Hmm.
biggest support is going to be you as an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur.
Okay.
So, it just, I can have the support of my family and friends and, my spouse, my wife, everything else. But in the end of the day, you want to be successful as an entrepreneur. The biggest support system is going to be you.
Absolutely.
You are not just that one crutch. You're both crutches.
That's right. You hear that, guys? That's right. Make sure you bring
You're
both of
not.
those crutches to the party.
Absolutely. And guess what? You're the guy who's going to be patting yourself on the back when things are going well, and you're the guy who's going to be looking in the mirror saying, "Wow, let's figure this thing out because that was a real whoopsie. Like, what are we going
Oh,
to do here?"
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, having a great support system with all of this conversation is absolutely essential. It comes from others. It comes from a mixture of where you come from, whether that's what you want to aspire to be or change the way that you were raised in a different way. So going the
Hmm.
opposite way, as we said, and the family and the friends and all this kind of thing. But in the end, again, self-reliance in entrepreneurship, that support system is going to come from you. It's funny. I was talking with my son the other day, and some kind of conversation about business or a decision sort of came up, and he sort of said to me, he said, how do you how do you make this decision, or like who do you talk to when you like have this kind of a problem? And there are some people
Me?
that within my company that I obviously talk to and bounce ideas on, but I'm like, that's a me talking with me thing.
That's
And
right.
you end up talking to yourself a lot, I guess, if you want to do this thing right. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question because who do you talk to? Who do you turn to and say, how can I do this thing without being concerned also about releasing information? Like in my business, when I have ideas, I don't have anybody to talk to because I'm too kind of weirded out about sharing with the competition in a way, even though we're in the
Yes.
same company and it's about collaborating, but it's how do you differentiate yourself from 32,000 other people in your company that are vying for the same job, for the same business? How do you navigate that? So the ones that win, they're either the loudest and have the biggest listings
Or the most
or,
tight-lipped.
and that's right. And it's
Yeah.
listen, competition is fierce in our business,
Yep.
especially in markets like New York and Pennsylvania and now Florida, which is, Wall Street South. So
Yep.
what do you do with that? And if you want to win in this business, you have to really understand marketing and being a marketeer, you know, and it's not easy. And, with that being said, what mindset shifts have been crucial for you in achieving success as an entrepreneur? And how can other people achieve these mindsets?
The different kinds of mindsets that are important is a limitless mindset, because of the fact that we're only limited by ourselves, and every peak that you're going to kind of get to, there's going to be higher and more exquisite peaks to get to. And so we are only limited by our own selves and the limitations we put on ourselves. So we need to have a limitless mindset in order to be truly successful and really truly fulfilled. If you're consistently saying that, there's a ceiling here, or I can't go any further, or I can't do any better, you never will. So
That's
you
right.
have to have that kind of a mindset. And then the other one that I believe is very, very important, and I think you're going to love or agree with this, is to have a mindset of being a global citizen, right? This idea
100%.
that we are on a big planet. There's people from all over the world
All over the world.
learn from, have cultural exchange with, develop ties with and friendships and things of that nature. And you only really do that when you get outside of yourself, when you see the rest of the world, and you don't even have to get on an airplane. I mean, you can do this through internet, you can do this through communications and video chatting and everything else that can really bring it home. But this is why, when we have this whole conversation, regardless of political affiliations around sort of making America great and these ideas,
Right.
It's, in my opinion, it's a nice thought, but it's an insular thought. It's a thought that to make, let's say, our own country better, we need to just focus in on our own country, when actually we're global citizens, and the
Right.
opportunities to make everything great, including our own country, come from embracing the rest of the world and being inclusive and being able to bring in opportunities, see opportunities, and so forth. If you're a horse that only has blinders on, you only see what's directly in front of you, and you miss everything else around you. So I'm a big fan of being a global citizen, or having a global mindset. So a limitless mindset and a global mindset. These are kind of the two pillars, if you want to say, as to
Right.
what I do and believe in and kind of work through.
I think that's amazing. Limitless mindset is definitely something I would agree with you 100%, because you can't grow if you don't have that mindset. And if you're not curious enough to venture out into the world, even through social platforms, then you're just stuck, because
Correct.
the world is open to us now. The young people that you say don't want to, do anything but get a paycheck or be a nomad or have $1 million immediately, they have embraced social media and platforms and started traveling, when years ago Americans didn't even have passports. But this generation, they're all vying for being global. That's all they talk about.
Correct.
Especially in my industry. Correct. Everybody wants to be global. They want to be global citizens. They want to have global businesses. The first thing they're saying is, we don't want to be just domestic. Just, there's more to this world than America, and we're in it. Matter of fact, we're totally in it. Our hands are in everybody's pockets there. So, being, I would say, the police of the world, we should venture out, because that's what we do. This country.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
We're the police of the world. So why wouldn't you want to see what we're policing? Why wouldn't you want to be interested in other countries and cultures? And that's what makes the world go round. I always say to my mom, there's no different food in the world. It's just seasoned differently. It's the same food that we all eat. And other cultures can teach us things that we don't eat, because we don't know about having them as food.
Correct. That I would say, I would definitely say it's not always about the seasonings. There's definitely some places where you eat some things that are not seasonings. There are other things.
Oh yeah, that too. That part too, but we want to leave those out. We don't want to be Anthony Bourdain here.
Correct.
Oh, God rest his soul. I'm sorry. What does authenticity mean to you, Kerim? in
It's
business?
just in business. In business, authenticity means uh, representing solutions that you yourself would take for your own self, guidance that's not giving guidance that's not fueled by only revenue or profits, but is actually fueled by sound advice and true solutions. If you do that, then you really will be authentic in your solutions more than anything else. But if you are only driven by, let's say, the idea of, I'm going to say this so that this person says that, and then there's going to be profits or revenues that are going to come about from this, then you really are showing a very singular type of a view, which is not really what you want to, which is not really being so authentic, if you want to say.
Right.
I think it really comes down to offering those kinds of solutions that you would give to your good friend or a family member or otherwise, that is not just tied to financial benefit. Because if you do so, one, you're more authentic, and two, you show more value because you're coming at it as a strategist, not just as like a salesperson. Like I remember, I'm talking about real estate, for example. You mentioned
Right.
real estate a few times
Hmm.
over. The best real estate agents I ever experienced were the ones that would tell you, hey, you know what? You should probably walk away from this house. I
That's
don't
right.
care if it's because you know what? It's just not the right house for you. You
Right.
don't like this, you don't like that, whatever. You're trying to make a square fit into a circle. It's just not the right thing for you. Or I can't envision you possibly being happy here because I know the things that we've talked about that you would make you happy. And this probably isn't really it for you. Well, in that case, maybe it's like the biggest paycheck, but that agent said, hey, I know that you're going to be here for the next 30 years. You probably want to like love living here and your
Hmm.
experience. So, again, that's that scenario of like you're giving advice to like almost someone that would like be a friend because you get to know what their needs are and their interests are. You've done some level of discussion or requirements
Right.
analysis, and you're providing sound guidance that has nothing to do with making a bunch more money. And
Hmm.
in doing so, that person is going to then refer you to their cousin and to their aunt and to their sister and
This
to
is
all those other
true.
ones.
This is
So
true.
what ended up being a very focused idea ended up having huge ripple effects that were much more beneficial. And that's how it's worked for me in my business. Because I've always done that and been authentic in those ways, we didn't advertise for the first probably 16, 17 years of our 20-year history. It was all based on word of mouth. Did a
Wow.
great job for this one, and then the phone rings 5 times over because you did great for this one. So help us with these things, and so
That's
on
how
and
it
so forth.
works. That's exactly how it works. I mean, it's so important to be a really good listener in our business. Those are the people that do well. Also, you're listening. And to your conversations just a second ago, you're absolutely right. Those are the agents that make things happen properly. I mean, I can recall having a client who walked into a house. They told me exactly what they were looking for. They walked into a house and they asked me to put a contract in on that house. It was $4.7 million. I'll never forget it. And I remember thinking the whole time I was at home writing up this contract, Jane, you cannot let them do this. They told me, whatever I do not let them buy a house without a view outside of it. So the funny thing is, we put the offer in, and I had them you know, take the offer from the table, rescind the offer, because
Mm-hmm.
it was not what they wanted. And it took me another 8 months to find the house they wanted, but I found it. And they wanted a view, and they told me, they said, we would have regretted that. And I said, I know you would have, and you would have blamed me, even though the house was absolutely gorgeous and you were buying everything in it the way it was. It did not
Mm-hmm.
have the view you wanted because the woman was very private, and she was a society lady who had parties all the time. So she wanted her area to be private back there. So
Mm-hmm.
it happens. And I've worked with these people for quite some time. And yeah, you're right. They give you the cousin, the sister, the brother, and everyone else. That's the referral.
Absolutely.
That's the chain.
Jane,
That's the chain of
Jane,
supply.
they're gonna say Jane's the one who didn't let us make that mistake. And we
Absolutely.
respect that from there on out.
And they
I've
do
had that
respect that.
they respect that more than anything else. And that is what will pay those dividends for years and years and years. I mean, in my business, it's been like that. We always take responsibility for the things that we're not even responsible for. And in
That's
doing
going the
that,
extra mile.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, no, I appreciate the question.
No, definitely you have to go the extra mile for a customer because that's what makes you great. That's what differentiates you from the other 32,000 when you do that. And usually
Correct.
your customers stay with you for years to come. And also you have to stay in front of them too, out of sight, out of mind. I can definitely recall calling a customer after not talking to them for a while. Oh my God, Jane, you know what? We just sold our house you bought for us. And you're thinking,
Mhm.
well, life happened really quickly for them. And then you say to yourself, life happens all the time, Jane. You need to stay in front of these people. And that's being a rookie and, understanding the ropes and going through everything and saying to yourself, wow, okay, we got to figure this business out. Because if you're missing a customer who you sold the house to, why wouldn't they call you? It's because you weren't at top of mind.
Correct.
And that's the
Correct.
important part of being in business, staying at top of mind and staying in touch with your people. This is your community, when you're working. This is who creates the business for you, your sphere of
100%.
influence, and the resources that you've gathered. And if you don't stay on top, guess what? They find someone else just as quickly because they have business, they have life, and they can't wait on you who doesn't know how to run your business. And that's what
Correct.
happens. And I think being a good listener is important in any industry, understanding what your customer wants and delivering, not only delivering, over delivering. And that's how
Yes.
it works, especially in my business.
Yes.
You have to over deliver because they'll step right over you to the next agent that's doing that. How has it been as far as innovation is concerned in your industry, and what motivates you to keep pushing those boundaries? What are you doing to be more innovative in your industry?
Well, I mean, the reality of it is that because my business is in such flux all of the time, and as I mentioned
Yes.
before, those ups and downs of the controllable and the non-controllable factors, there is so many areas of creative solutions that you are consistently working through day after day, week after week, month after month. Now, there are some big innovative trends that are happening in the space today. For example, there's a significant amount of trends that are happening in, artificial intelligence that's impacting the supply
100%. Yes.
chain. Everything from the ideation phase, where in the past you would have to work with a designer for 2 or 3 months to create something and then prototype it. I mean, now you basically create something in 10 seconds. You ship it off to a factory. They make a 3D model in 3 days. And what would have taken 3 months takes a week. And, this is
Wow.
all facilitated through ideation phases, AI. You have things that are happening in the realm of sustainability that are very exciting and interesting and innovative as far as alternative sources of energy and fuel and reducing carbon footprints. For example, there's an entire area, you'll appreciate this, as it relates to right sizing of boxes or cubing. So a perfect example is you get that shipment from Amazon and the box is this big and the thing inside of it is this big with a bunch of airbags, right? That is going in our landfills, right? That is
and wastage. Yes, exactly.
Wastage and dunnage and a very high carbon footprint. Now multiply that times the millions and millions of shipments that Amazon or other companies are doing every single day like that. Well, there's technology today that as an item by item, passes through a machine. It takes a photograph and all of the dimensions of that item and creates real time a box that actually fits properly, protects that item, and reduces the carbon footprint of those products by anywhere from 70 to 90%. And this is new technology, which is within the last 1 to 2 years, that is going to revolutionize the way that we ship things, a reduction in shipping costs, reduction in footprint, carbon footprint, and so on and so forth. Because at COP28, which was the big UN conference that happened in Dubai, they stated they stated that by 2050, their goals were to be kind of carbon neutral when it came to supply chain, transport, and logistics industry. Because today, the supply chain and transport and logistics industry represents, I think, the seventh or the eighth leading cause of carbon emissions and greenhouse gas detrimental effects.
Okay.
So
That's
they're really
polluting our
working.
air and breaking through our ozone layer. Yes.
Correct. Correct. But at the same time, we're consistently growing and building and making things, and nothing's going to slow down the consumer economy. So we have to do it in a way where we're using more recycled materials and we're using less product wastage and all of these other things that are happening within the realm of supply chain and innovation. I chaired an event in Las Vegas 4 months ago called the Deliver event. I was the chairman of this event. I was the keynote speaker, and the entire event was around basically people, the planet. So everyone who was there, from Disney to Walmart to whoever was there, was talking about their innovations as far as reduction of carbon footprint. And then they also were a profit neutral organization as well. So It's interesting in that way. But the point is it's important and it's timely. So innovations are happening with regards to technology. They're happening with regards to sustainability. And they're also happening with regards to geographic location. So we're consistently looking at ways to make the supply chain more effective and more efficient. And that includes nearshoring, so bringing foreign direct investment or entities that are great at what they do to closer locations, whether it's Mexico, Canada, or the United States, to reduce transit times, reduce the amount of fuel surcharges and emissions and so on and so forth. So we're looking to basically make the planet smaller and smaller and smaller by taking the best expertise from all over the world and bring it as close as we can. So these are all things that are sort of happening in my space, and I'm a part of all of these kind of solutions that are happening.
Very exciting. And I love that you keep saying the solution because, in our business, we have to be solutionist also. That is the key word. That's the operative word for me of the day, being a solutionist. And that's, I think, where you come into play with all of these people that you deal with on a global, level here. And not only that, what you said is so important too, because what you're doing is you're saving these companies on their bottom line with the technology by, cutting out waste, cutting out, resourcing, cutting out manpower. So the bottom line of profitability for these companies is surging from that. So it makes sense. And globally, you're saving the planet somewhat by keeping the ozone layer tighter, because right now we're having issues, and especially with the emissions and the cars and everything, we're trying to get to electric cars altogether. Yes. I mean, some of the conversations with civilians is amazing when you hear them talk about electric cars. It's like, come on, guys, are you not reading what's happening in our world? So I take my hat off to you being a thought leader and a leader, global leader in this industry, because you have definitely opened my eyes, and I'm sure our audience eyes, to the whole supply chain industry. I mean, I read quite a bit about you, of what you had online and what I could find. And I thought, wow, this guy is going to be really interesting to talk to. And I'm really happy. Yeah, you are. I mean, I meet a lot of people, and I had another podcast called From Execution to Excellence at one point, because I believe in excellence and I believe in the pursuit of success, with individuals. And I always say, success looks different to different people. And depending on what your journey of that is, it's nice to meet people that have a different view on the whole scope of unpacking their lives. And you do, and a wonderful view on unpacking your lives for the world. So I really thank you for being here today. It's amazing. I just have one last question. Maybe we can get it in. And that is, what is your vision for the future and your career, along with your personal life, and how do you plan to achieve it while staying true to yourself in this industry?
I think when it comes to my vision for the career, when it comes to my vision for family and everything else that's important to me, is to just continue to feel fulfilled. That's it. You have to feel fulfilled, and you have to feel satisfied that if, we cease to exist for whatever reason it is, tomorrow's never promised, that you would never look back and say, I wish I did these things. And even the things that you didn't accomplish, that you were okay with the fact that you didn't get to them or get to those different opportunities, because, there's no shortage of opportunity, and there's no shortage of things that you can do, whether it's in business or otherwise. But as long as you feel as though you really are a fulfilled person, that's my goal for now, every day, and the future. When it comes to my business, my work, my opportunities, and the relationships that I have, to always feel fulfilled and satisfied, so that I never feel like I just, didn't get it all in. That's
right.
Really how I feel.
And we all want to get it all in, don't we? It's something about getting it all in, and just, the smiling part when you talked about India, that is so true. And if you're not smiling, then something's wrong internally.
Absolutely.
And you have to embrace the world and enjoy life and keep moving forward. And, Kerim, it has been an amazing time talking to you today. You have been a guiding light with this supply chain, because I knew nothing about it, to be honest with you. And you have really opened my mind up to it. Will you let our audience know where they can find you? And hey, if we have anybody that's interested in understanding what the supply chain industry is about, you know who to contact. Kerim Kfuri.
Sure. So my company is theatlasnetwork.com, THEATLAS network, theatlasnetwork.com, for any global supply chain solutions, helping entrepreneurs, small, medium, large size businesses navigate this global space if they have problems or issues, or they're trying to just make things into a reality. As far as my thought leadership, all the social media platforms you could think of are there: LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and all that stuff, X. And then my website is kerimkfuri.com, is where you can see a lot of what I'm working on and what I'm doing. If anybody's interested in my book, which is a 150-page, really simple, easy to read piece, it's at supplychainupsanddowns.com, or on Amazon with Supply Chain Ups and Downs. And that's where I am. The only those 30 links I just told you.
Well, we can definitely find you. Yes, I love it. I'm so happy that you came on the show. And please, if you ever want to come back on the show, just let me know. Shanti, she can find me. Shanley, right? Shantley. Is that her name? Shantley?
Yeah,
Shani. She can find me, and I would love to have you back on if you have anything interesting you want to talk to the audience about, and let them know what's going on.
Be happy to. And thank you so much for a wonderful interview. And let's definitely keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you.